Welcome to the Crystal Library, a pocket-sized portal into the magical, mysterious, and sometimes misunderstood world of crystals. I'm your host, Ashley, and each week I'll guide you as we explore one enchanting stone, its history, lore, healing properties, and one easy way to invite its magic into your everyday life. Whether you're crystal curious or deep in the woo, this is your space to learn, explore, and expand your connection to the mineral realm, one glittering gem at a time. So let's open the library and see which crystal wants to speak today. Hello, and welcome back to the Crystal Library. I'm Ashley, and I'm recording this episode on a full moon in Capricorn and also the first day of Mercury retrograde. So fingers crossed, everything goes well. But yes, I'm just coming back from a beautiful weekend in Santa Cruz with my family. It was such a wonderful time. We did all the Santa Cruz things, the boardwalk, the beach. And today's episode has a little bit of something to do with an experience we had at the beach. And then also this episode is dedicated to my beautiful little boy, Jasper. So I will explain all of that as we get into it. But yeah, so hello, welcome. Let's do it. So yesterday, my son picked up a dead fish on the beach. It had been there long enough that what was left was mostly bones. The skeleton was for the most part intact. The flesh was kind of dripping off, but it's the kind of thing that gives most people the ick. He picked it up with both hands and carried it around for like an hour, and he thought it was just the most extraordinary thing he had ever seen. He kept turning it over. He was examining the bones. He was running his fingers along the spine, and he decided that it was a sea monster. He's 3 years old. He'll be 4 on July 4th. And as I mentioned, and as many of you probably already know, his name is Jasper. And this episode releases on July 7th, 5 days before his birthday. I did not name my son after the stone, Jasper. I just thought it was a really cool name. I had no idea when I chose it what Jasper actually was, what it meant geologically, mythologically, spiritually. I just knew the name fit him even before he was born. And then I became crystal obsessed and I started learning what Jasper actually is and what it has meant across cultures and centuries. It's interesting to realize that even though my conscious mind didn't choose the name Jasper based on the actual stone, there is a deeper meaning in the stone that truly does resonate with my child. So this is the Crystal Library episode for Red Jasper. There's also lots of other types of Jasper, but this is specifically Red Jasper, and this is an episode dedicated to my beautiful son. This episode is not fully about him. It's about what he pointed me toward. It's about what this stone actually is underneath everything the crystal world usually says about it. And it starts the way most things start, with blood. Okay, let's start with the geology, because with Red Jasper, I want you to notice how the science and the story are saying the same thing. Red Jasper is a form of chalcedony, and if you listen to the last Crystal Library episode on blue lace agate, you know that blue lace agate is also a type of chalcedony. What I find genuinely fascinating is how chalcedony can show itself in such radically different forms and colors. Blue lace agate and red jasper are mineralogical cousins, and they could not look or feel more different from each other. Same family, completely different type of expression. And if you're looking on YouTube, this is a piece of red jasper I have right here. Red jasper specifically is microcrystalline quartz, meaning its crystal structure is so fine, so densely packed that you can't see the individual crystals with the naked eye. What you're holding when you hold red jasper is millions of microscopic quartz crystals compressed into a single coherent mass. It formed sedimentarily, meaning it wasn't born from a single dramatic volcanic event. It accumulated layer by layer over enormous spans of time, mineral-rich sediment compressed and solidified into what we now hold in our hands. That formation process matters. This is a stone that was built by accumulation, by time, by pressure, applied slowly and consistently over more time than the human mind can actually conceptualize. Its hardness is 7 on the Mohs scale. For reference, a steel blade, knife blade, is around 5.5. So red jasper is harder than the thing we use to cut things. And here's where it gets really interesting. Red jasper gets its color from hematite or iron, specifically oxidized iron, which is chemically rust. The color that we see as fire, as blood, as warrior strength, that deep saturated blood, is the signature of iron that has already been through transformation. Iron that was exposed to oxygen and changed at a molecular level. It didn't stay pure metal. It surrendered to the process and became something else entirely. We look at red jasper and we see strength, and we are not wrong, but the strength we are seeing isn't the strength of something untouched. It's the strength of something that has already been through it. That distinction is really everything. Okay, let's see here. Sorry, I got distracted. Okay. Here's what almost nobody talks about when they talk about red jasper. Okay. Every major ancient culture that worked with this stone arrived at the same understanding independently. And we see that with a lot of these different crystals that I have shared with you. That these different cultures, they didn't share notes. They had no way of sharing notes. They didn't have the internet. They were separated by oceans and centuries. And they all looked at this deep red stone and said the same thing. This is blood. Not just any blood, the blood of something sacred, the blood of something that creates and destroys and creates again. That is not a coincidence. That is a transmission. In ancient Egypt, red jasper was linked to the blood of Isis. Isis is one of the most significant goddesses in the Egyptian pantheon, goddess of magic, healing, and resurrection. Her story goes like this. Her husband, Osiris, was murdered by his own brother, Set, who dismembered his body and scattered the pieces across Egypt so he could never be made whole again. Isis refused to accept that. She searched for every piece. She gathered them. She reassembled them. And through her magic, she brought him back enough to conceive their son, Horus. Isis is the force that takes what has been completely destroyed and finds a way forward anyway. So when ancient Egyptians linked red jasper to her blood, they were not talking about the blood of battle. They were talking about the blood of someone who refused to accept that what was broken could not be put back together. Reconstruction after annihilation. That is what this stone carries in the Egyptian tradition. In Norse and Anglo-Saxon mythology, red jasper was inlaid into the hilt of Siegfried's sword. Siegfried is a hero from Germanic legend, a dragon slayer, one of the great warrior figures of the Norse world. His most famous act was slaying the dragon Fafnir, a creature so powerful and so feared that no one would go near him. But here's what I want you to notice about where the red jasper actually was in this story. It wasn't the blade, it was the hilt, the part the hand wraps around, the interface between the warrior and the act of courage. Red jasper wasn't doing the killing. Red jasper was holding the person who had to. And then there is the tradition I find most striking of all. Among some native North American nations, red jasper is called the blood of the earth mother. Not metaphorically, literally. The understanding was that the earth itself has a body, that it bleeds, and that when the blood solidifies, when it becomes permanent, when it becomes the ground, this is what it looks like. Red jasper is the earth's wound-made stone. It is loss that has become land. 3 completely separate traditions, 3 completely separate cosmologies, and they all arrived at the same understanding. that this stone is where blood becomes permanent, where what was shed and what was lost becomes record, it becomes structure, it becomes the very ground beneath your feet. That convergence completely reframes what we think we know about this stone. We talk about red jasper as a grounding stone, as a root chakra stone, as a stone of strength and stability. And all of that is true, but grounding in the way red jasper understands it is not about feeling comfortable and safe. It is about standing on what has already been lost. It is about the specific stability that only comes after something has been surrendered. The ground beneath your feet was not always ground. Something had to end for it to become what it is. I need to tell you something about how Jasper came into this world. And I'm talking about Jasper as in my son. Before he was born, I had 3 miscarriages in a row. It was devastating. I almost gave up trying to have a second child because I felt so depleted physically, mentally, spiritually, everything. I felt like I was going through the motions of life. And then a month before I turned 40, on our 10-year wedding anniversary trip in Mexico, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And now my beautiful little Jasper is here. And what came through was a child who picks up dead fish on the beach and sees a sea monster, a child who notices the moon every single day it is visible in the sky, a child who collects the creatures that live at the boundary between decay and new life, a child who has told me he can see things that most of us cannot. I find it interesting that so many qualities of red jasper are found in my son. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he was created and born of the same earth as the earth mother. What the mythology understood, what Egypt and the Norse world and Native North American tradition all independently arrived at, is that red jasper is not about strength that has never been tested. It is about what solidifies after the loss. It is about the specific kind of ground that can only form after something has been surrendered into it. My son is standing on that ground. He was built from it. Here is what I think red jasper is actually trying to teach us, and why some children understand it instinctively in a way that most adults have to work very hard to access. We talk about red jasper as a grounding stone, a root chakra stone, an earth connection stone, and when most people hear those terms, they picture something gentle, something stabilizing, something that makes you feel safe and settled and calm. But real earth connection doesn't look like that. Real earth connection looks like a 3-year-old who picks up decomposing fish and spends an hour fascinated by its bones. It looks like a child who goes looking for roly-polies every single day, creatures that exist specifically to break down what has died so that something new can grow. It looks like a child who notices the moon, who sees ghosts, who understands instinctively that there is more happening in this world than what most of us are willing to acknowledge. That child is not afraid of the parts of reality that most of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid. He is in conversation with them. And that is exactly what Red Jasper is asking of us. The root chakra is not about comfort. It is about being rooted enough in reality, all of reality, not just the parts we find palatable, to stay present with what is actually happening. Death is happening. Decay is happening. The unseen is happening. And red jasper, at its deepest level, is the stone that says you are allowed to look directly at all of it. We spend enormous amounts of time and energy in our spiritual lives trying to get comfortable with impermanence, with death, with the parts of existence that we don't feel safe. We read books about it, we meditate on it, we go to workshops about it, and most of us still flinch because somewhere along the way we were taught that those parts of reality are the parts to avoid, that death is morbid, that decay is disgusting, that the unseen is something to be afraid of rather than something to be in conversation with. Red Jasper is not trying to give us something we don't have. It is trying to return us to something we forgot we knew. So let's talk about what Red Jasper actually does, because when you understand everything we've just covered, the properties read completely differently than they do on a standard crystal list. Red Jasper is consistently associated with strength, but not the kind of strength that has never been challenged. The strength Red Jasper offers is the kind that gets built through endurance, through showing up when you don't want to, through continuing when continuing feels impossible. This is a stone for people who are already in it, people who are actively being tested right now and need something that reminds them of what they are made of. It is strongly associated with the root chakra, and we've already talked about what that really means. It is not about feeling cozy and grounded. It is about being anchored in all of reality, including the parts that are uncomfortable. The root chakra governs survival, yes, but it also governs your relationship with the physical world, with your body, with death, with the earth itself. Red Jasper works at that level. It doesn't let you look away from those things. It makes you capable of standing in them. Red Jasper is also a stone of justice. Multiple sources describe it as a stone that rectifies unjust circumstances, that brings problems to light before they become too big to address. And there's a thread in the literature, particularly in Melody's work, about radical accountability. The idea that Red Jasper communicates something uncomfortable, that all choices are ultimately your own responsibility. It has a long history of protective work, particularly protection during sleep, protection from nightmares, and protection from unwelcome energies. Placed under the pillow, it has been used for dream recall and for stabilizing the energy field during the vulnerable hours of sleep. It cleans and stabilizes the aura. It strengthens boundaries. Boundaries in the Red Jasper tradition are not about keeping things out because you are fragile. They are about knowing exactly where you end and everything else begins because you are that clear about who you are. It connects with earth energies, ley lines, and sacred sites. It has been used in sex magic and as a charm for good fortune. It boosts stamina, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Marathon runners, endurance athletes, people going through long, difficult seasons of life. And physically, Red Jasper has historically been associated with the circulatory system, the blood, and the liver, which makes complete sense when you understand that its color comes from iron. Iron is what makes your blood red. The same element that colors this stone is the element that carries oxygen through your body. Red Jasper and human blood are at a molecular level doing variations of the same thing. I didn't name my son after the stone. I named him because Jasper was a cool name and it fit him before he was even born. But the more I learn about this stone, the more I think the name found him before I did. Happy birthday. Happy almost birthday, Jasper. You'll be 4 on July 12th. I love you. Red Jasper has big crystal energy because grounding was never meant to comfort you. It was meant to remind you that every choice has always been yours. Bye. Thanks for listening. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for visiting the Crystal Library. I hope today's stone offered just the magic you needed. If you loved this episode, share it with your favorite mystic and tag me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash or at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if you're feeling generous, leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps this magic reach more curious souls. Until next time, keep your crystals close and your intuition closer.